Hey, so today we're going to start hooking up our views to our API response in our Tattoo Handbook app. Let me go ahead and show you real quick where we are, where we left off. So we're here, and we've got this view that has like default kind of values thrown in just to make sure that we hooked everything up correctly. Today, what we're hopefully going to do is get it so that the last 3 blog posts that we have coming down from the API show on the home screen. So give it a second. We're going to do this time kind of what we did last time, which is where we're going to start with a test. The test's going to fail, and then we'll make it pass. Okay, so this is what we have right now with these like default things. And ultimately, we want to make the titles and images of those 3 blog posts show up right here. Okay, so here's where we're going to start. We want to make a new test class. So I'm going to go to Scottish Gaelic Tattoo Handbook Tests, and I'm going to say I want to make, let me just make a Swift file because I'm actually going to get a lot of the boilerplate from somewhere, and we're going to call this our home ViewController tests. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I have a test similar to this in another app, and so I'm going to borrow it, and then we're going to change it. So here's the part that I want. We're going to have to add another little thing on the end here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There we go. Just the one. And we want to import XC test. It's mad about a lot of things. We'll get there. Import. Actually, it's going to be testable. Import Scottish Gaelic Tattoo Handbook. There we go. And this is going to be home view controller tests. And we are going to do the home view controller here. All right, so then we're doing our setup. We get our storyboard. So in the original test, we go to the main storyboard, and then we go to the navigation controller, and we get it out. We don't need to do all of that. We are going to instead do storyboard instantiate view controller with an identifier. And we'll make that identifier home view controller. Now, this is a little bit of a, I don't love that we have this stringly typed thing going on in iOS, but in order to make this work, we actually have to go to the main.storyboard. We need to set an identifier explicitly on our view controller right there. So we're going to do it right there, where it says storyboard ID in the identity inspector. Okay, so we have that. That's going to get us, hopefully, our home view controller, which it needs to be cast as a home view controller here. And this is going to be our system under test. And then the view is lazily evaluated on view controllers, which is why we have to assert that the view isn't nil, because by referencing the view right there, we force it to instantiate. So that's your setup method. So here, we don't want a mock bird service. Ultimately, what we're going to want there is a mock, what did we call it? Blog post service. Yeah, and I'm going to rename that, refactor, rename, mock blog post service. Yeah, and then this is going to be refactor, rename. So now we're going to put in some mock blog posts that we want to have returned. So that's going to go right here. Now we have to be able to new up a blog post like that, which means we need a constructor. You'll notice that right here, we only have the one constructor from the decoder, which is useful for the JSON, but we already tested whether the JSON gets turned into a blog post in our other test, so now we're okay just having the blog post directly. So I want to make an initializer that is going to give us a blog post and is going to allow us to define our two attributes directly. So we're going to do that in blog post right here. I'm not going to test drive this because in my experience, test driving constructors doesn't end up revealing regressions very often. So let's do init, and we want to do image URL and title. Well, actually, let's put title first. String image URL string. Whoop. And then it already knows we want to return an instance of the class because that's what an init does. So we're going to do self.title equals title and self.image URL equals image URL. There we go. So that gives us our initializer that we need in order to be able to write our test the way that we want to. So in here we can do, where am I? Blog post. Let's try this again. Blog post. Doesn't give me, so this is what we're going to do. Mock blog post service. We didn't make our mock blog post service yet. That's okay. You know what? Let's go ahead and do that while this is reacquainting. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to add a class in here. Class mock blog post service. And it's going to extend our original blog post service. And then I want to put two variables in here. Let me show you an example of that. So we have our mock birds and our mock error that could come back from the service. And then anytime that the method is called that we're typically going to call on the real service, the mock is going to return whatever our mock values are. So actually we can borrow this and make a mock. Now, there are ways, there are like mock libraries that you can use and that kind of thing for iOS. I think it's fine to just roll our own mock for this. So that's going to be a blog post, right? And then right here is going to be completely different. Signature, so mock, mock blog posts. And then we're not using this anywhere yet, so blog mock error, we'll call it. And then let's override. And this is where it should complete for us. Get blog posts, and then all we're going to do is call the completion handler with mock blog posts and mock error. So that gives us our mock. And then we can do our blog post up here. Let's go ahead and do title, example title, and image URL, example.com. Now we'll worry about the fact that that's not a real example later. These are going to be all even. So we have 3 blog posts coming back. It's happier now. Blog post.type is not convertible to decoder throws blog post. Let's take a look at our blog post class again. We have our init. I think this should work. I think it just hasn't managed to build yet, and that's the problem there. We'll find out. So this next part asks the system under test to have the type of service that we're looking for. And here we're actually going to name that blog post service. But it doesn't have that attribute yet. And so we need to add that to, see, value of type home view controller has no member blog post service. So we need in our home view controller to say var blog post service. Blog post service. That should take care of that. And then we don't want this. We're going to do an assert, and we are going to assert that example. Well, first we're going to assert that our default value is there. So that's this blog post the first. First we're going to assert blog post the first. And then we'll do view will appear. I'll explain that to you in a second. And then system under test dot first blog post title dot text. And then we want something very similar to this. Here. Except this time we want it to be example title because we want the labels to be set to what comes back from the service. So that's what we want to make sure works. Did we name this appropriately? Let me run this and see if that fixes any of this. All right, there we go. Mock blog post. So this is going to be mock blog posts. Yeah, let's try that again. Build succeeded. Yay! Okay, so what it's saying is system under test equals storyboard initialization. Oh, did we not use it? We'll use it there. Oh, this needs to be assigned to self.system under test, not a new. There we go. Okay, so our test failed. Let's see why. Yeah, so example title is not equal to blog post the first. Basically, this is, so this part I want to point out passed. The reason that this passed is that it is testing our default values that we put in. Then we want to make sure that those values have been changed after the call to the service, which we're going to do in here, which I'll explain in a second. And that's not happening. So that's what we're going to make pass. So the thing is that essentially what needs to happen now is the ViewController needs to have a dependency. It needs to have an attribute that is the blog post service. And we added that already, right there. But dependency injection can be a little bit tricky in iOS. So first of all, dependency injection is where when our class needs some functionality that belongs to another class, rather than inheriting from that class or something like that, or passing itself in as an attribute to that class, instead we keep an instance of that class as an attribute on our object that needs that functionality. And the nice thing about that for testing purposes is that then we can put in a mock object as a stand-in for the dependency so that we can test our original object in isolation of whether or not the dependency works. So in this particular case, we already have a test for the service, and I don't want to test the service in this class. I want to say, if we assume that the service works, then is this class doing what it's supposed to do? This class being the ViewController. Now, dependency injection is a little bit tough, particularly in the case of ViewControllers, I should say, in iOS. Because typically when we are injecting something, we can inject it in the constructor or the initializer, pass it in when we new up an object, and then we can decide which one to pass in when we new up that object. But in iOS, we're not responsible for the instantiation of our own ViewControllers. The framework does that. There are a couple ways around this. First of all, there's libraries like Swinject and that kind of thing that can help you handle it. We're talking about like Dagger and Android as an equivalent example. So there's stuff that'll help you do this. Alternatively, we can purposely overwrite the way that iOS instantiates view controllers and manually instantiate our own view controllers. I'm not a huge fan of that second method. I prefer that iOS be permitted to do what iOS is designed to do. And in terms of including a dependency to do this, I like that up until it's not working, and I've run into a fair amount of trouble with dependency injection libraries for the two native frameworks. So instead, I kind of cheat. And this is what I do. I take advantage of the lifecycle methods that I know are going to be called on a view controller. Essentially, I will establish which lifecycle method is going to be newing up all of the dependencies, or getting all the dependencies. I establish a lifecycle method that happens after that, and what I'll do is I will call the lifecycle method where the dependencies are put in on my test object, and then I will run the lifecycle. Then I'll change out, I'll reassign all of that stuff to overwrite the real dependencies with the mock dependencies that I want to put in. So now I have an object with all mock dependencies, and then I'll call the lifecycle method after that where the logic is happening that uses those dependencies. And that's what we're going to do with ViewWillAppear, which you saw right here. Okay, is that I'm going to be using my blog post service in that method. Okay, so here's what that's going to look like. So we call ViewDidLoad. ViewDidLoad is where we're going to instantiate our service. Then I'm going to overwrite that dependency with this. And then I'm going to call ViewWillAppear and make sure that the right thing happened. So let's go through that. All right, I'm in ViewDidLoad. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say self dot blog post service equals blog post service. Yeah, I newed it up. So now, after this happens is where I'm going to put in the fake one in the test. Then I do ViewWillAppear like that. And in here, I'm going to say self.blogPostService get blog posts. Yeah. And so let me show you what this looks like over here in our So we take in our completion handler, right? So let's grab this completion handler. That's going to go right where this example code is. This is going to be blog posts. Error is fine. We want to make sure that blog posts is present. And we're going to say here confirmed. Blog posts equals blog posts. Error is going to be nil, or else we're going to return. And then we're going to say self.first blog post title.text equals confirmed blog posts. The first one dot title. Now let's see if our test passes. Is it running? Wow, it passed! Yay! All right, so now let's make it a little better. Let's say first title, second title, third title. And so this is going to be first title. And then we're going to do the same thing with second and third. Second, third, second, third. There we go. Oh wait, wrong play button. Well, look, it works. A medieval Gaelic word for tattooing. Cool. So, however, the test should fail now because we still don't set the second two titles, right? Second, this should fail. Yeah. Hopefully on the second title. Yeah, it fails on the second title. So let's go fix that in our home view controller. Like so. Now, could things go wrong here? Absolutely, things could go wrong here. For example, if there's not 3 items in our blog posts, this is going to crash. For now, we're going to assume that there are 3, which I think is relatively safe because we know that there are already more than 3 blog posts on the blog. Let's see if our test passes now. Let's go to our, for variety's sake, let's go to our little test navigator and see there if it passes now. Nice. All right. And we see our 3 titles show up. Now let's do the image. So here's the thing about the image is that typically testing the images is a little bit more of a pain. So I'm going to leave it untested for right now. And that means that it would theoretically be possible for something to get messed up with the images and us not know. I'm going to leave these defaults. I am going to change these defaults to coming soon. So that there's at least something there until we implement like a spinner or something so that you can see. So now, for example, if we run the app, let me run it and show you. This is going to have to be fast, so look close. Get it right away. Oh! So it says coming soon, and then it gets the results back. So the reason for doing that is that then this view doesn't look completely ridiculous until the stuff is populated. Ultimately, we'll put like a weight spinner or something in there, but in the meantime, it's like something sensible. A sensible default. And there's reason also to potentially localize this string. Once again, we'll do that later. So we have our default things, and now we want to set our 3 images. So let me show you an example of how we might do such a thing. Let's look at this code. So this is how you go about making an image from image data provided via a URL. So we're going to yank it. And we're going to say we're going to rename this blog post image data. And then this is going to be it's going to be confirmed blog posts dot image URL. Yeah. And then this is going to be first blog post image dot image. Maybe we should make that first blog post image view or something. And we're not going to, that was making it a circular. We don't want to make it circular. And then it's upset because, because it's image URL, big letters. All right, let's try it. So this type of like UI related stuff, it can be a little bit tough to test. And in this particular case, what I'm doing instead of writing a test for it is creating this sensible default of these, oh, it loads, these like nuts. So that, yes, we are, by not testing this, we are opening the possibility that this is going to ship with like something broken about fetching the images. But because we have these sensible defaults, it's like lowering the risk profile by making it so the app doesn't crash and or look completely ridiculous if that code is broken. So that's the decision that I've made here. So what is wrong here? I like to use the auto fixes. So this, we need to, I'm going to pull this into its own method. And I need to pass in the image URL and the image view. So we're going to do set image for image view to image. Now we don't have that method yet, so I'm going to do it here. Private set image for view image view to URL. I'm going to put this in here. Now, it's worth noting that this is a method that mutates stuff. This is a UI image view. It mutates stuff rather than providing a return value. Use of unresolved identifier confirmed blog posts. Yeah, because this needs to now be URL. And then we need to make our image view like that. So now we're going to set our image for first self.first. Now, could we do this in a loop? Absolutely. We sure could. I'm not going to worry about it yet because there's only 3 of them. So this is going to be 1. This is going to be 2. And this is going to be 3, third. First, second, third, 0, 1, 2. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Let's look at it. Oh man, it's mad. Call to method set image enclosure requires explicit self. Oh, because we're in this. This is a closure, and so we have to say self to indicate what the scope is of the method that we called. Because the scope of the method that we called is this entire this entire class. I don't know how to like this entire class and not just this closure. Why does it still hate me? Because I did not put commas in between my arguments. When I make this motion at computers, sometimes they work. It only worked on, here we go. These images must be big for how long they take, eh? I don't know if I like that. Do you like that? Like now if I were to add a weight spinner to this screen, I want to do it there because the images take so long. Why don't we do that? Watch this, watch this, watch this. Main. And then we can decide what we like. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Okay, so we got our view here. And then we have our safe area. We got our scroll view. Let's make a, whoa, 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 whoa. Everybody simmer. Let's get our UIActivityIndicator up. And I want her to be outside the scroll view. And I want her to be all the way around. Can I add these constraints? It's going to give me a medium activity indicator. And then I want it to be centered horizontally and vertically. And I also want it to have a you can pick different let's make it large. Let's make it black just so we can see what's happening. I'm not saying that it's going to stay that way. I just want to be able to see it. I don't know which of these things I'm changing, so we're just making them all whack colors. We'll fix it. Yeah, and then what I want to do is I want to open my home view controller. I have somewhere to be in about 20 minutes, so if we don't finish this before then we'll hold off. I'll leave you in suspense. How about that? I think we can do it, though. Wait, let me tell this person. Yes, we're still zooming in. Come on and zoom, come on and zoom. Come on and zoom, 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 zoom. All right. I'm going to get in trouble for copyright infringement for singing that on screen. Here we go. Control drag. Make an outlet. Weight spinner. Connect it up. The other thing I wanted to do here was to check the little box that says, oh, I did, hides when stopped. So let's do this. View did load, self.waitSpinner .start animating. And then here we want to do self.waitSpinner. Oh no, this is a terrible time to realize I have to pee. Theoretically, it should just hide. when we stop animating it. Let's look. It's so ugly. Why is it moved over now? I don't like that. Let's do this. Let's position our weight spinner inside the scroll view. Also, we're going to take this background off because, man, was that ugly. I didn't see what any of the rest of it did, honestly. Alright, let's look at its constraints again. Atom. Center it all up. And we can pick a style. Let's try this. I don't see it, but this is still messed up. Alright, we're going to get rid of this weight spinner real quick. What we're going to do is we're going to put it, I bet it needs to go right there under the scroll view, because it needs to be on top of it from like a Z perspective. Where am I? Not in the object library. That's for sure. Okay. Is it a sibling? I feel like it is. Feel like it is. Boom. Except 0, please. 0. 0. 0. This is a learning experience. We're learning. We're learning how to make things work. And I'm pretty sure that the background on it needs to be like black with 20% opacity, for example. Ooh, look at, can I pick that? I don't know when you pick it. I'm just doing it. What? No. This. That. This. Is that just gonna work? See how it doesn't set? Let's just try this and see what happens. Oh, I see. You set the alpha separately. Then why is there an alpha in the custom? Very upset about this. All right, let's see how it looks. I don't think it's gonna work, actually. I think we messed up. Yeah, because the weight spinner is now not connected up because I deleted it. Smart, Chelsea. Genius! But what we can do is we can hook it back up. What we can do is control drag from this to this little outlet here. And that should fill. No, I don't want to do a new one. I just want this one. Hey! Listen to me. Yeah. It's so mean to me sometimes. Okay. And then when the things get filled in, it doesn't go away though, because that's not good. What happens if I explicitly set hidden to true? Is that the problem? What happens if I explicitly say self.waitSpinner hidden true? I feel like I shouldn't have to do that. Good. Now where's the spinner part? Did anybody see the spinner part? Am I the only one that missed that? Where's the spinning? I want to see it spin. It's supposed to be a spinner. What different styles are there? Let me make it large. Maybe that'll make it more obvious. I feel like I told it to start animating programmatically, and so I shouldn't have to check that long. I literally don't see a spinner. Maybe it's just because it's loading so fast. Let's look again. All right, we might have to fix this later. I do want to make sure that my tests pass altogether before I make a commit. Because I can think of one reason why they wouldn't, actually. Because I didn't put a real URL. Into the home view controller thing, and so they might hang. So this hangs. So this is what we need to do. Watch this. If let hydrated image hydrated image. Yeah, so now we make sure that that's present first. And now if we run the tests, we should be good. Important to know when your variables might not yield the results that you expect. Come on, you can do it. You can do it a little faster. All right, let's see what it's saying. Unexpectedly found nil while unwrapping an optional value. If so this needs to be converted data. If let converted data equals this thing that I stole. So we need to check on both of those. Initializer for conditional binding must have optional type, not data. There we go. Because it needs to be optional. we'll deal with that in a second. Okay, so everything works still. Now how about the tests? Upset. We'll go look at that in a second. That's fine by me. And this one, oops. Oh yeah, so now it's failing because we set our defaults to be that. And as a matter of fact, we could do this assertion for all of them. Now I know there's duplication here. I'm just not that worried about it because it's 3 times and it's really clear what's happening. And so I know that this makes your teeth hurt, but I like the clarity, and I promise if we want to consolidate it later, it's going to be super easy to consolidate. Much easier than it is to split out objects later if you thought 2 things were the same and it turns out they really weren't. Do I think there's a high risk of that here? No, not particularly. But I also don't think there's a big cost to keeping 3 separate lines here. Ta-da, the tests, they pass, it's beautiful. I'm cutting it close. Let's run it one more time. Just make sure everything works. Make sure. Dark loads. Beautiful. Except that we can't find the spinner, but we agreed that we're going to deal with that later. So let's go ahead and make a commit here. Git status. Add all my things. And then when I run status again, make this a little wider so you can see. So that'll look right. I change blog post to add that constructor, change the home view controller, of course, and its tests. Beautiful. Git commit. And so what we're going to say, what did we do? Fetch, display image and title for fetched blog posts on the home view. And then in the additional notes, also adds activity indicator to be visible while titles are fetching. Does not wait for images because they take a little longer. Can we get smaller versions of image? Otherwise, perfect this. The other thing I want to say is currently I don't see the spinny thing for the activity indicator, although I do see the background and I would like to see the spinner. Beautiful. Nothing to commit. Working tree, clean. There's our gorgeous commit message. Awesome. So next time we'll go in search of our missing spinner and see if there's any additional cleanup that we need to do before moving on to another feature. Have a good one, y'all.